Good afternoon, everyone. How are we? If you need to have a wriggle, go for it. So, Chris, you've been sitting for a while, and I thank you. I thank you for coming. I really do. It's funny. Over the years, I really enjoyed watching that show, Border Security. Anyone other fans? Yeah, my daughter and I were always fascinated how people would actually try and get away with bringing things into our country that they knew they shouldn't, or should have at least declared. We would watch the program and think about how diligently our customs officers and our Australian Border Force were working in order to keep our country safe, or in order to keep our borders secure. Because that's what we want, right? We want a safe and secure nation, yeah? But what happens when those that are entrusted with our security begin using methods and chemicals that many of us consider excessive and dangerous? What happens when the very institutions that we thought were here to protect us actually begin to turn against us? This is the dilemma that we have been facing in our nation for years now. We have kept hearing this phrase, and yes, Hugh, I'm going to use it, safe and effective. But isn't it about time that we ask the question, safe and effective for whom? These chemicals are not safe and effective for us. They're sure not safe and effective for our environment. In January this year, Senator Malcolm and I went on a whirlwind tour right around the electorate of Wright. We went to 14 different locations, and I went with my notebook in hand, ready to listen, to find out what I could do to help people right across the different communities. What I didn't anticipate was that at every single location that we would turn up at, the issue that kept coming up was fire ants. And no, I'm not actually talking about the ant itself. No, I'm talking about the National Fire Ant Program. I'm talking about the program that has used such extraordinary methods to override people's rights to their property, rights to the enjoyment of their land and their safe enjoyment of their land. It's not okay. The aggressive enforcement measures that are being used are not okay in our community. From the Lockyer Valley through to the Gold Coast, where we're here today, from the scenic rim to Logan, the message has been consistent. People are outraged, and I want you to know we're listening. Senator and I and Zion and a whole bunch of people that you have heard from today, we are listening. And we want to help, and we are doing everything in our means at the moment to throw weight behind putting a stop to this. One Nation has consistently helped people to try and navigate this drama by helping to connect people to those that we knew actually had more knowledge. And I'm so thankful for the people that have made time to be here today to help to educate all of us, because there's so much involved. When I first started digging into this, I couldn't believe I'd dig into one area, and no sooner had I thought that I had gotten my head around that, there was this other aspect. Now we're dealing with the fact that it's not even, we're talking about genetically modified product as well. Where does this end? And it was all knowingly done. No, this hasn't been done in secret. They knew, it's not an accident. I spoke to Topher Field probably about 3 months, or maybe a month ago now, not 3 weeks or a month. And he asked, are they just stupid? Was it just a stupid mistake? I said, no, there's plenty of information out there. They know exactly what they're doing, but they're choosing to continue, and the question is, why are they doing this? I think we all know, most of us know the answer to that, and I'm not going to get into it right now. It has to stop. We've already heard the quote from Dr. Joshua King, who has been at the forefront of this in the US. So I won't repeat that, but he's made it very clear that this is not the way to go. That one of the things I want to mention though is that there is this assumption that eradication is feasible and ultimately justifies the methods being used to attempt the eradication. That is not true. The ends never justifies the means. The prophylactic use of toxic chemicals, which has been approved by the Australian Pesticides and Veterinary Medicines Authority, the APVMA, raises serious ethical concerns. I've done research. I had to submit my research to the University Ethics Board years ago to get approval for my research. If this was to be sent to any university's ethics board, they would have tossed it out. It cannot pass. The material safety data sheets for chemicals like pyriproxyfen and S-methoprene clearly state the dangers. The material safety data sheet for pyriproxyfen states for research use only, not for medicinal, household or other use. It has a rating of H410, which is very toxic to aquatic life with long-lasting effects, and a rating of P273, avoid release to the environment. The actual off-permit license, because that's what they had to obtain, to be able to use this chemical in a way that was different from the material safety data sheets, they had to get an off-license permit. That's what the APVMA gives, okay? That was what Connie was talking about. The actual off-license permit says, do not, in capital letters on the permit, apply as a preventative measure for red imported fire ant control. This is odd on a permit applied for by the Department of Agricultural and Fisheries, Biosecurity Queensland Control Centre. So why on earth have they not been prosecuted as the APVMA has authority to do? It's outrageous. The material safety data sheet for S-methoprene, another chemical that's being used, says avoid discharge into the drains or watercourses or onto the ground. Avoid discharge to aquatic environments. We've heard about that since our first speaker, Lynn, spoke. Ensure all, I love this, I leaned over to Hugh when I was watching some of the videos and I said, look at the masks they're wearing. Did you recognise that? So listen to this one. Ensure all respiratory protective equipment is suitable for intended use and complies with Australian and New Zealand standards. Check that the respirator fits tightly and the filter is changed regularly. Okay, did you see any of those? I didn't see any of that on. No. Connie brought up about the degradability of the product and the bioaccumulation. None of them are supposedly known. Interesting, Connie, seeing as though they've been using the products for so many years, you'd think they'd have some type of pin on that by now. It also has a UN classification of 3082, meaning it's classified as an environmentally hazardous substance. It gets worse. Fipronil and chlorpyrifos have also been used for goodness knows how long. And this has been despite the APVMA's own damning reviews. The environmental and health impacts, especially through baiting, are deeply troubling, if not criminal. And I really believe that that's where we're at.
Natalie, fipronil was also brought back when they did all of these, so it was banned in Australia.
It's really interesting. There was a report that I was reading online. I'm trying to remember the lady's name off the top of my head and I can't right this moment. But she explained that both of these two chemicals, fipronil and hyporifice. If you inject it, wherever you inject it into the ground, it affects 2 to 3 meters beyond the injection point. And another person who was actually part of the fire ant control center hierarchy, he actually acknowledged that they had stopped using it for a while because it basically kills everything. Pardon?
It's petroleum-based product.
Right.
So you're injecting oil throughout the atmosphere.
Okay. So, despite all of that, believe it or not, there's actually, the NFAEP still actually have a current permit to use fipronil. Both of these products, you can actually Google very easily and find out and read the reports. I spent quite a bit of time reading through those reports. They're so damning. And to look at the impact, I'm not surprised that the gentleman that we saw that was talking about the effect on his impact, the nursery owner, Wayne, I'm not surprised of what he was describing after having read so many of the reports and seeing how it had impacted the animals that it was being tested on. Not surprised at all. Equally disturbing is the forced entry onto private properties. These coordinated attacks, they're just like drug busts. Only this isn't for a criminal. These are normal, everyday Australians. This is no border security show. We've got people being treated like criminals on their own properties. Bullying. It is bullying, you're right. When Trevor's property in the Lockyer was targeted, what I want to also add, there is constant surveillance. We know there's surveillance because when Trevor's house, when his property was baited, when they went to do his baiting, he had supporters there. Guess whose houses they were at while they weren't home?
I was one of them. I'm at corrupted.
There you go.
At the same time Trevor got treated and they turned around and turned it into my place.
There you go. So there's someone here that was actually involved in that. So just in case you think that that was, it's not. So how is it that all this surveillance is going on? Who's permitting it? Who's got everyone's data? Who's watching us all at home? It's not on, guys. It is not on. This is Australia. This is not a communist nation, and I won't stand by and allow this nation to continue to drive this way. I find it fascinating that real estate agents and landlords have to provide written advance notice in order to do anything on their properties. But we've got fire ant teams that can turn up, perfect strangers can turn up to your home anytime, let themselves into your backyard. It is trespassing. I actually said to a gentleman that I spoke to who had been on these fire ant teams, what about people that don't answer the front door and they come in? What if there's someone out the back or at home or a child? Oh, he said, I've been that person where we knocked on the door and no one answered, so we helped ourselves around into the place and scared the living daylights out of the guy that was having a cigarette or the lady putting washing on the line. That's not okay. Oh, the one breastfeeding a child, love it. How about the kids at home? We've got a whole lot more kids doing homeschooling now. How about the kids that are at home? It's not okay. What if my daughter was to come home of an afternoon only to find some group of guys standing in our backyard? It's not acceptable. It's not okay. It's not according to public standards. And if that weren't enough, actually I will also add, Connie, I think it was, mentioned about the I could be wrong, it might not be Connie, we've heard from so many today. The minor use, was that you, Connie? It was. Connie talked about the minor use permit. I want to add that the biosecurity laws that they're supposedly leaning on are because of the emergency of fire ants. Can I just tell you that after 30 years, there's no emergency anymore. There's no emergency. You try calling 000 and saying, I've got an emergency that started 30 years ago. See how far that takes you. I might also add that no evidence of fire ants on your property does constitute as a reasonable excuse. But if that wasn't all enough, and it is, but I'm fed up with the significant financial burden that is being faced by businesses within the fire ant zone. Farming, nursery and turf industries have all been directly impacted. And this has been due to the negative press, to the restrictions and the compliance costs. We saw that on the screen earlier. Far out. You know, we've seen, Jake's here today. I've spent a bit of time with Jake in the lockyer and seen for myself sheds full of hay to the roof because they can't transport it, because people aren't buying it, because of the bad publicity that they're getting over the quality that there might be a fire ant in their hay. It is appalling and ridiculous. Millions upon millions is being lost. Do you want those farmers going broke? Do we want it?
Nah.
So we actually need, as a community, to start actively supporting the farmers that are in the Lockyer Valley, in particular, so that we can actually help them to get out of the hole that they're currently facing. So I would encourage you, if you do need stuff that you can get from the Lockyer, please do. The NFAEP has repeatedly warned people of the dangers of transporting goods from the fire ant zone. We saw that with hay, but we've seen it with lots of areas. I heard someone told me, I was trying to get it confirmed, but I haven't confirmed which business it is yet, but apparently one turf farm has already coughed up $1 million in compliance costs. And now I understand why, having seen Trevor's the video from Wayne, with how much chemical and the time it's taken for him to deal with it. Imagine being a turf farmer.
Bunnings has to do every square inch of their soil.
Oh, but Bunnings would be as well, but at least, I'm not going to go into Bunnings, but we are purchasing all of this stuff. Imagine putting those trees in your ground. You're thinking you're going to be eating great fruit and veg off them, of the different crops. You don't know that they've been absolutely saturated with all that chemical. One of the things that Jake brought up, which you didn't see much on the video, but that Deborah shared, but the video is available on Rumble. And he was sharing, he has tried to push forward this idea of having a producer-led accreditation in order to try and alleviate this whole problem with being allowed to get their goods out. Because here's the thing, people like Jake, who are professional hay farmers, they have paid for accreditations, big money. And then if they want to transport their goods across the border, then they had to pay for someone to come out and have them actually check what they were going to take over the border. So all of these compliance costs, and depending on if it was outside of business hours, of course, the price, tripled. So, despite all of these payments that they've made, because of the bad press, the New South Wales government have now said, oh no, we're not going to accept any of your goods. This is why I'm saying that the Lockyer needs help. They're on the border, okay? So a lot of their trade was going to New South Wales. Now they cannot trade. Is that fair? Is it even constitutional? I don't believe it is. I do not believe it is. As a result of the press and these decisions, some of these businesses have lost 80% of their trade. Jake, I asked him if it was okay to share this with you. He's lost 50 to 60% of his trade in the last year. A dollar value for that, he has lost around $820,000. That's massive. So there are three main issues that I've been dealing with. Chemicals, violation of property rights, and the financial burden on businesses. These represent a serious breach of government responsibility, both state and federal, and they must be addressed. Before the election, I called on One Nation to develop a policy on fire ant management. That policy has been rewritten by Zion and I, because we wanted to make sure that it reflects community standards and values. A copy of the draft is available to you today. Some of you have already got that. If you didn't receive that on your way in, it's available as you go out, just near on the table. One of us will be down there and we'll be able to grab that for you and give that to you. That is a draft at the moment. Please take a look at it. Feel free to feedback any information. My contact details are on the One Nation website. Don't use the email address that's on there though, because that email has been shut down now that the election's over, but my phone number is certainly there should you wish to contact me. And so is Zion. We're both very available to be contacted. Here's what I will end with. One Nation does not support the limitations of trade, nor the financial burdens of regulation that have been imposed on businesses. We will not support the suppression of trade. We will not support the dumping of toxic chemicals on our environment and in our waterways, and we will not support the violation of property rights for landholders. Biosecurity risks must be balanced with the rights of the people. So I thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. I can't wait to see her.